and welcome to the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the Hope episode. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. I coach men who are struggling in relationship, how to communicate effectively, build trust, and deepen intimacy so they can be the best version of themselves in relationship and live the life they love. So over the past few months, I've been inspired by a couple of guys who have written some books together. Dan Sullivan, who created the highly successful The Strategic Coach, and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, an organizational psychologist and best-selling author. And one of the recurring themes through their books is how important having hope is to our success in any aspect of our lives. So I decided to dig a little deeper and do some research about hope. I found out that there's a thing in positive psychology called hope theory. In a nutshell, the theory is that by embracing hope, people can improve their psychological well-being, strengthen their motivation, and navigate challenges with greater resilience and optimism. Hope theory can apply to relationships too. I mean, it's common sense, right? Well, there is research to back this up, and it says that hope can benefit relationship in a variety of ways. I'll start with the overall satisfaction of the relationship, and of course my favorite, the long-term commitment of the relationship. Hope can also increase resilience within the relationship. It helps with open and mindful communications and conflict resolution. It enhances overall emotional well-being. And having hope can help to nurture positivity and create a healthy and fulfilling partnership. So those are the benefits of having hope in your relationship. So what kind of impact can the absence of hope have on a relationship? Well, the research says it's not good. They say it could have detrimental effects on relationships, like overall relationship dissatisfaction, communication breakdown, emotional disconnection. The lack of hope can cause a breakdown in problem-solving abilities and relationship instability, and it can negatively impact individual well-being. And the research concludes that cultivating and maintaining hope is crucial for nurturing and sustaining healthy and fulfilling relationships. Well, what comes to mind for me is the story of Dan and Courtney, not their real names. Dan shared with me their story. They had been high school sweethearts and got married after college. They had been married for almost 12 years. And they were like best friends and had lots of great conversations and had established a lot of good memories over the years. Dan and Courtney had 3 kids, and they had built a really solid and thriving life together. Well, as time went on, what once was a thriving and solid relationship began to get a little shaky, as many relationships do, right? And it was not because of any real crisis in their relationship. They just started drifting apart. Basically, they were caught up in their own struggles and responsibilities and didn't take any time for the two of them to connect and cultivate their marriage. The deep-seated love they had for each other started to fade. And this weighed heavy on the hearts of both Dan and Courtney. They had many conversations about it, only to end up in an argument, blaming each other. Well, as a last-ditch effort, they decided to go to a marriage counselor. After several months of therapy, things didn't get any better. As a matter of fact, they felt even more disconnected. And Dan was frustrated, and underneath that frustration was a deep sadness that his marriage was falling apart. He had lost hope that things would ever change. There was so much water under the bridge, he felt that any effort would be too little too late, and he was exhausted from fighting for the relationship. Well, Dan realized that he couldn't go on living in this state of hopelessness and feeling like he had to give up his happiness to stay in the marriage. And he got the courage to confront Courtney and tell her that he felt that the marriage had run its course, at least for him, and that it was time for him to move on. And Courtney admitted that she had lost hope too, and she agreed with Dan. And as hard as it was, they both knew it was the right thing to do. And, there were a lot of tears from both of them. And they both recognized it was time to go their own way, to heal and regain a sense of hope and fulfillment. And if you think about it, they had been together since high school and basically grew up together, right? And they felt that they needed to find themselves as individuals. So Dan and Courtney filed for divorce, and it was amicable. They were committed to being co-parents and sincerely wished the best for each other moving forward. Well, the story doesn't end there. When I met Dan, it was during the aftermath of the divorce. He was experiencing a mix of emotions. He was, down, sad, he was even angry at times, and he had this sense of grief, the sense of loss for what once was. And he still lacked a sense of hope. He questioned whether he would ever be in another long-term relationship again. I told him that I could relate. I had felt that way after my last divorce. And as I mentioned in episode 1, I was ready to give up on relationships altogether. I had to regain my confidence. And I learned from my mistakes, and I realized that I had a lot to offer in relationship. And as I always say, a force greater than myself pushed me to put myself out there, and I met my current wife. And now, almost 15 years later, I am happier than I've ever been in relationship. So anyway, getting back to Dan's story, Dan and I got to work, helping him recognize all the things he did right in his relationship and, of course, what he could improve upon. We dove into self-compassion and mindfulness and mindful communication strategies. And with time, Dan began to rediscover himself. He focused on his own well-being, nurturing his passions, and rebuilding his life. And he learned a big lesson, the lesson that sometimes letting go of something that no longer serves us opens doors to new possibilities and growth. And through this process, he regained hope in the possibility of finding happiness and love again. And no doubt, Dan's divorce was a challenging chapter in his life. It also became an opportunity for personal growth and renewal. Now Dan has hope in the possibility of finding love, joy, and fulfillment in the future. And last I heard, he has started to date, and he is doing just fine. So remember, hope in a relationship is crucial. It enhances resilience, communication, conflict resolution, overall relationship satisfaction, emotional well-being, and, my favorite, for the long-term commitment of the relationship. Cultivating hope can contribute to that overall health and success of a relationship, developing a positive and fulfilling connection between partners. Here's a quote to take us out from the late Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, "Hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear. If we believe that tomorrow will be better, we can bear a hardship today." So keep hope alive, y'all. And that will wrap up this episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the Hope episode. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. Thank you for listening and taking the time to learn and grow to be a better you in relationship. And I hope you join me for the next episode when I'll be giving you a chance to see if you are truly committed in your relationship. You just might be surprised. Join me for the Are You Committed episode. And remember, if you have any questions or issues about your relationship you need help with, you have comments about the show or just want to check in, I would love to hear from you. You can find my email address in the show notes. It's bill@pathways2livingwell.com. That's bill@pathways2livingwell.com. And until next time, keep your heart open and stay on the path to love.